Well, Heidi, I guess there's now a new contract for the flight service stations with Lockheed Martin. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, the FAA chose to exercise their option on a contract that was initially implemented in 2005.
Okay, so the new contract extends until?
Until September 2013. And in fact, there's another option if the FAA would choose to extend it beyond that, they could for another 2 years.
Okay. Not to be too blunt, but obviously Lockheed Martin is now doing something right.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of lessons learned over the last 5 years. So since 2005, we've certainly had our ups and downs, and I think summer of 2007 was certainly a real low period in the last 5 years. But a lot of things have been learned over the course of 5 years, and honestly, we're hearing some really good things from our members.
Okay, that was my next question. How is the service now, and how do we know?
Well, I think overall, we can gauge by the fact that our members are not complaining. I think that often, if there are issues, our members are not shy about sharing those concerns with us, sharing them with Lockheed Martin, sharing them with FAA. But Lockheed Martin's been very responsive to those concerns, and in fact has followed up on each and every concern that pilots have raised. And I think we monitor monthly with Lockheed and FAA. Those complaints have dropped significantly.
So we're not really hearing anything coming in from our Pilot Information Center anymore about problems with Lockheed Martin, the flight service station system.
We hear very little. And in fact, most recently, the last 6 months or so, about the only thing the members are sharing with us are some concerns over consolidation, which always seems to be a concern if you potentially lose some local knowledge, which is a key component of flight service. But overarching, the complaints and concerns have really dropped to a minimum.
Now, there are certain metrics that Lockheed Martin has to meet in providing the flight service station services, and how are they doing on those metrics?
They're actually doing very well. So I mentioned that we meet monthly with both the FAA and Lockheed, and we review those metrics together, and they are very transparent with the FAA, with AOPA, as part of reviewing and monitoring those metrics. And they've done very well. Over the course of the summer months, obviously, it's a little busier flying season. So they've had days where staffing has been a challenge, quite frankly. But they've really set out on a strategy to try to ensure that they have adequate coverage. So.
Now, I know you have the monthly meetings. There have been some other sort of scoping or looking towards the future meetings that you participated in as well, I think.
We have. In fact, recently AOPA sat down with the FAA and talked about their plans for flight service for the future. And obviously the Lockheed Martin contract is only pertinent to the lower 48. Alaska is still, flight service in Alaska is still run by the FAA. But FAA is looking at a broader brush approach, I believe, in the next few years. They want to embark on bringing all of their flight service platforms under one umbrella.
Now, when we first entered into this contract with Lockheed Martin, we got a lot of complaints, a lot of concern from our members. What has been the benefit to both the taxpayer and to the pilot community by going with the contract with Lockheed Martin?
Well, overarching, I think financially there's been a savings, and I think that's why the FAA embarked on the A76 process and the outsourcing. But quite honestly, I think the customer service level from our membership, and again, we've had our highs and lows. It's not been without some pains. But overarching, Lockheed Martin has done a great job with customer service and ensuring that the level of service to the end user, being the GA pilot typically, is above average.
And speaking of service, let's talk about a few of the things that maybe some pilots don't know about how they can get some better service from flight service. What are some of the things that we can do?
So there are a couple different things that Lockheed has offered. So you can actually file a pilot profile, and while it's something they're working to allow pilots to do online in the next probably 6, 8, 10 months, right now if you call 1-800-WEATHER-BRIEF, you can actually file some personal data so that when you contact flight service, they actually have your personal information stored. Your briefing time is reduced because of that pilot information already being there.
And that's what, tied to your phone number?
It's tied to your phone number, exactly. There's an element of caller ID to that, your tail number, your name, obviously. So there are some different elements to that information.
So if you file a pilot profile, the minute you call into flight service, they know who you are, they know your tail number, they know whether or not you're VFR or IFR rated, and they can tailor the briefing
Absolutely.
for you.
So there's some benefit there. You don't always have to continue to give that same information. One of the other elements that Lockheed offers is whenever you call 1-800-WEATHER brief, you can actually go direct to a briefer that knows your area, is familiar with your region. And you can do that by inputting your 2-digit state identifier. So when you do that, it routes you directly. Let's say here in Frederick, we'd input Maryland, and it would take us directly to a briefer who's familiar with our area.
So how do I put in a state identifier?
So you look at your touchpad and whatever the number associated with M and D is, and that automatically reroutes you to that local briefer.
So they're using the postal codes for the states? Essentially,
yes, exactly.
Great. What about some of the other things, the pilots? How about Duats? Are we still going to have Duats?
For the foreseeable future, absolutely. I think Duats has been a really core function of flight services to our members. Certainly, we know that our members utilize Duats significantly, and until at least 2013, we know the contract for Duats was recently extended through that time frame.
Right, and I should point out there actually are 2 Duat services. There's DTC Duat and CSC Duat. Both are free. Both are available to the entire pilot community.
Correct.
Great. What's on the future for flight service?
Future of flight service, as we mentioned, FAA is embarking on an initiative to try to bring all of those FSS platforms under one umbrella. I think the thought process is somewhere in the 2015 and beyond time frame. They would like to do that. And some of the input we've shared with them are we need to bring flight service to a next-gen arena. We're not there. I think there's obviously been some strides through Lockheed's contracting that has helped bring us to the century we are in, but we're certainly nowhere near next-gen. And there are a lot of different things that have to be done to ensure flight service moves ahead into the next-gen environment.
Let me play Larry King. Expand on that. What do we mean by moving into the next-gen environment?
So you and I fly. We both carry a cell phone. Wouldn't it be nice to file your flight plan or close your flight plan by an application on your iPad or your smartphone? So we're looking to some of those features to come online in the very near future and to utilize technology in the cockpit on portable devices so that you can make opening and closing or getting a flight plan and getting weather information at the touch of a button.
Now, one of the things I know that back in the OASIS system, which has sort of gone by the wayside except in Alaska, but one of the promises of the OASIS system was that you as the pilot could call up on your computer screen and see the exact same graphics that the briefer was seeing at the same time the briefer was talking about that. Is that something that we can hope for?
Well, and that's really interesting. That's one of the core initiatives that FAA would like to see in this new platform that they come under. They feel the ability for the briefer and the pilot to see the same information and to brief from that same information is really critical. And I think that's, in fact, a good observation, something I think we had all hoped for sooner rather than later. I know it was one of the things that was an option in the Lockheed contract. It hasn't come to fruition, and I think we're all anticipating it will soon.
One final question, and let me really put you on the spot. Knowing what we know today, if you could go back to where we were when this first was proposed, and would you still advocate that we had taken the same position?
I absolutely think we would. Yes, because flight service had to evolve. We weren't evolving. It had to modernize. And I think the steps in terms of outsourcing to Lockheed has at least gotten us one step closer. We still have a long way to go. And no change is without some issues, without some pain. So I think we made the right decision, and I think it's going to continue to evolve, and they're going to continue to step up and meet the needs of the current GA pilot and into the next gen arena.
Great. Well, thank you, Heidi.
Certainly. My pleasure.